Resiliency Funding webinar series. For those who have not joined us before, the goal of this webinar series is to break down state and local funding opportunities to better help local governments and community partners navigate and access potential solutions to the challenges that they might be facing. So this series is being hosted by us at the CRO, as well as our partners with the Office of Economic Development and International Trade, in collaboration with multiple other agencies that you've seen featured so far. So we have previously done a segment on public safety and mitigation funding, but because there's a lot available in this space, we are extending it to a part 2. So we are going to have Robin May from our Colorado Department of Public Safety kick us off. And then we will have Todd Ruffner join us following her presentation from the Colorado State Forest Service. So with that, Robin, if you want to go ahead and take it away.
Perfect. Thanks, Cheryl. Good morning, all. My name is Robin May, and I am a grant program manager with the Division of Criminal Justice under the Department of Public Safety. I currently work in the Office of Adult and Juvenile Justice Assistance. Over the last few years, through multiple pieces of legislation, Colorado implemented a comprehensive public safety package, also referred to as the Crime Prevention Grant Programs, aimed to make Colorado one of the safest states in the nation by using a multifaceted approach that engages all stakeholders involved in and/or impacted by the criminal justice system. Colorado seeks to collaboratively address public safety through both prevention and early intervention strategies. The state hopes to empower local communities to implement evidence-based, innovative programs that meet their specific public safety needs. In 2022, the Crime Prevention Grant Programs kicked off and are underway, funding many amazing programs across the state. Today, I will be talking with you about 3 of those grant programs that are currently open and accepting new applications. The programs I will talk about today are targeted for law enforcement. We're going to fly through this information, but I will be available after this presentation should you have any questions. And I'm ready for the next slide, please. Okay, one more. Cool, thank you. Okay, so let's dive in. First, let's talk about the Synthetic Opioid Poisoning Investigation and Distribution Interdiction Grant Program. That's a mouthful, so from here on out, I will refer to that as the fentanyl grant. And as you may have noticed on the news, or perhaps you know through your line of work, synthetic opioids or fentanyl has been a growing problem in the United States. This drug is up to 50 times stronger than heroin and 100 times stronger than morphine. It is a major contributing factor to fatal and non-fatal overdoses in the US. While there is pharmaceutical fentanyl, it is also being made illegally. The intent of the fentanyl grant program is to provide grant funding to law enforcement agencies for the purpose of investigating deaths and serious injuries caused by illegal synthetic opiate poisoning and for disrupting synthetic opioid supplies. This funding opportunity currently has $801,471 to award. The award period for this program will be 6 months, running from January 1st, 2024 to June 30th, 2024. And the deadline for new applications will be August 4th at 5 p.m. Mountain Time this year. Next slide, please. So to be eligible for this grant program, you must be a law enforcement entity, such as a municipal police force, sheriff's office, state patrol, the CBI, a Colorado District Attorney's Office, a multi-jurisdictional law enforcement task force, or a police department for a private or state institution of higher education. Next slide, please. So eligible activities for this program are to investigate deaths and serious injuries caused by illegal synthetic opioid poisoning, investigating, enforcing, and prosecuting synthetic opioid importation and high-level distribution networks, to reduce the supply of illegal synthetic opioids and precursor chemicals in Colorado. Precursor chemicals are substances that are commonly used in manufacturing of illegal narcotic drugs. Next slide, please. Additionally, technology, equipment, and training to enhance intelligence, information sharing capabilities, and interagency collaboration among federal, state, and local law enforcement partners regarding synthetic opioid importation and high-level distribution networks. Also to analyze emergent trends in markets, including the use of the Postal Service, private couriers, commercial cargo, and the internet for the import and distribution of illegal synthetic opioids through a systematic and standardized approach, including the use of novel high-frequency and real-time systems to enhance market surveillance. So next slide. So what are some examples of the type of activities that fit within this program? And please note this isn't an exhaustive list, just merely examples. But enhanced testing equipment for synthetic opioids, such as the handheld TrueNarc device, technology to unlock cell phones, such as Gray Key by Grayshift or Cellbrite, data analytic tools for reviewing cell phones and social media, such as Nighthawk, server storage to manage data captured, enhanced testing of synthetic drugs, forensic data analytic tools, mobile device forensic tools, and personnel to get trained and manage overdose detection and surveillance applications. And because this drug poses such a significant safety risk to officers, also included is safe evidence handling and storage items such as vented hoods, evidence lockers, and then Faraday bags to keep electronic devices secure. And then lastly, training relevant to investigating, disrupting distribution and prosecution of illegal synthetic opioids. Okay, so because this is a 6-month grant, it is a very tight award period. However, much of what can be funded through this program can be purchased within this timeline. Many of the items I just mentioned are currently being used by law enforcement agencies, but they may need more simply because of the caseloads, or it's something they have had on their wish list, but have not purchased because of budget constraints. Next slide, please. So next up, we will talk about the law enforcement workforce recruitment, retention, and tuition grant program. These all have super long names, and they're mouthfuls. We'll refer to this one as the LE Workforce Grant Program moving forward. This program and the one we will talk about next recently went through legislation a second time for some technical fixes and to add additional eligible activities. So as you may know, careers in law enforcement have taken a hit over the past years for a variety of reasons, and it has become more difficult to find individuals to work within this field. So this program focuses on addressing workforce shortages, improving the training given to post-certified peace officers, and to improve relationships between law enforcement and their communities. Just as a FYI, since you'll hear it often moving forward, POST, it stands for Peace Officer Standards and Training. So this funding opportunity currently has $3,387,310 to award, and the award period will run from January 1st, 2024 through December 31st, 2025. The deadline for new applications for this program will be August 16th, 2023 at 5 p.m. Mountain Time. Next slide, please. So to be eligible for this grant program, you must be a Colorado law enforcement agency, a tribal law enforcement agency that serves fewer than 50,000 residents, a third-party membership organization on behalf of a law enforcement agency, or a police department for a private or state institution of higher education. Next slide. So eligible activities for this program are to recruit, pay the tuition for, and train individuals to work in a post-certified law enforcement career. Also to increase the number of persons receiving training as a post and non-post certified law enforcement personnel, and improve the training provided to such persons. Provide continuing education opportunities for post and non-post certified peace officers, and increase activities intended to foster a more positive relationship between law enforcement and impacted communities. To improve training specifically for post-board trainers by enhancing their curriculum to expand mental health, implicit bias, cultural competency, critical incident, de-escalation, and trauma recovery trainings, and also to increase the availability of workforce mobility. Next slide, please. Additionally, provide opportunities for post and non-post certified peace officers to receive training in equity, diversion, and inclusion, provide or assist in the provision of childcare and cardiovascular and other health screenings for peace officers that may not be included with their insurance. And then lastly, to create partnerships with schools, school districts, colleges, or universities to develop and implement internship or mentorship programs for students interested in a career in law enforcement. All right, next slide. And then lastly, we'll talk about the state's mission for assistance in recruiting and training, also known as the SMART grant. And the goal of the SMART grant is to provide grants to law enforcement agencies to increase the number of post and non-post certified law enforcement officers who are representative of the communities they serve, and to provide training for those additional law enforcement officers. And in essence, the goal of this program is to increase diversity within law enforcement. The funding opportunity currently has $6,860,237 to award. And the award period will be January 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2025. And the deadline for these applications also is August 16th, 2023 at 5 Mountain Time. So this opportunity and the LE Workforce Grant Program are both posted in Zoom grants together. However, as you fill out the application, the questions will be based on which program you're applying for. So you can apply and be awarded for both the LE Workforce and SMART grants, but it will require 2 separate applications. Next slide, please. So to be eligible for the SMART grant program, you must be a Colorado law enforcement agency, a tribal law enforcement agency, or a third-party membership organization on behalf of a law enforcement agency. Next slide. And the eligible activities for SMART are going to be to increase the diversity of post and non-post certified law enforcement professionals and the public safety employees to better reflect the community in which they work. So this not only covers the law enforcement officers, but also could cover civilian employees within those agencies. Also to cover costs associated with eligible law enforcement officers' salary and benefits, recruitment and training, provide opportunities for post and non-post certified law peace officers to receive training in equity, diversion, and inclusion, and then providing or assisting in the provision of childcare for peace officers. Next slide, please. And then also to create partnerships with schools, school districts, colleges, or universities to develop and implement internship or mentorship programs for students interested in a career in law enforcement. And also to create partnerships with the schools, the school districts, or youth service organizations to develop and implement youth programs to foster a positive relationship between youth and law enforcement and to foster early interest in law enforcement careers. Also covered is to develop and implement education campaigns for law enforcement workforce recruitment, retention, and tuition assistance, and to implement any other strategies demonstrated to recruit, train, and retain a high quality and diverse law enforcement workforce if deemed appropriate by the division. Next slide. Okay, so now that we're all experts on these 3 grants and you're ready to apply, how do you apply? So by visiting the website listed on your screen, which will guide you to the Zoom grants application, on this website, you will be able to access the applications, application instructions, guiding legislation, and other information that would be helpful to you while you learn more about these programs and prepare your application. Additionally, you can see the other crime prevention grant programs that were included in this public safety package. Next slide, please. Okay, so we flew through that very, very fast. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out to me through email or by telephone. I will stick around for the questions portion of this call at the very end, but I do really appreciate your time and attention today. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, Robin. And yeah, as Robin mentioned, we will be taking questions at the end, so feel free to add those to the chat or to the Q&A feature, and then we will address those shortly. But for now, we will turn it over to Todd Ruffner from the Colorado State Forest Service. Go ahead, Todd.
Hey, hello, everybody. My name is Todd Ruffner, and I'm a wildfire mitigation program specialist for the Colorado State Forest Service. And today I want to talk about 3 grant programs that we manage, and most of them, like the title says, deal with fire mitigation, reducing the risk of wildfire around communities and within local government agencies. So we'll get started with the next slide, please. So the first one is the Incentives for Local Government Grant, or the ILG. This was established by the House Bill 22-1011, and this provides state funding to local governments that have a dedicated revenue source for local forest management and wildfire mitigation efforts. They are used to build capacity to create jobs in forest management and fuels reduction. These projects promote fuel breaks, forest thinning, and other means of forest management that reduce the risk of wildfire. And the eligibility depends on the revenue source you have, which may be similar to what Boulder County did with their sales tax mitigation program, or a mill levy that might be passed. And then the match criteria, this is based on areas of local or lower economic resources. And we'll kind of go through that here in a little bit. Requirements must include a cross-boundary or landscape treatment, project areas with previously completed CWPP or community wildfire protection plans, or a FEMA hazard mitigation plan, or any effort that includes public lands that have been recently treated or are planned for treatment. So the funds available for 2023 were $9.5 million. And all of this was allocated to local government entities, and they had almost $15.5 million requested. So you can see the need is there for these funds for this work to be done in these treatment areas. The unfortunate part is this one may not be available in 2024. We haven't heard a yes or no yet about this one, so we're hoping it comes back. As we can see, the need is there. So next slide, please. And so the final report that's required should show the number of acres treated, the cost per acre, any use of forest products, meaning firewood or poles or some sort of timber product, number of individuals, homeowners, or communities that were reached, a description of the efforts, number of jobs created, and any photos of the work being done, either in action or before and after, and then maps of the project areas. And you can see the picture below, some of the work that may or may not be done to build piles, reduce fuels, and create those open landscapes. Next slide, please. So our next grant is the Forest Restoration and Wildfire Risk Mitigation Grant, or FIRWORM, as we like to call it. This was established by the Senate Bill 17050, and this provides funding to reduce the risk of wildfire to people, property, and infrastructure in the wildland-urban interface. This promotes forest health and utilization of woody materials, and to encourage forest restoration projects. So two types of the projects that FIRWORM allows or funds is the fuels and forest health, to reduce hazardous fuels, to promote forest health, and then to build capacity, which we're trying to increase community capacity to plan and implement wildfire risk mitigation projects. And some of the eligible groups can be homeowner associations, local government entities like counties or fire protection districts, public or private utility or state agencies, and then nonprofit organizations. And these groups must be the fiscal agent and have legal authority to administer or implement projects. They must agree to report and monitor their requirements. They need to comply with federal and state environmental laws, and then follow any applicable Colorado best management practices that we have in our guidelines. Next, please. So the FIRWORM grant has a match of 50%, and this can come from another state funding source, or they can have a match of 25% in areas of lower economic resources. And for the grant cycle this year's The application period starts August 16th and ends October 18th of 23. There's a 7.44 million available for this round. So final reports need to include number of acres treated, again, cost per acre, amount of woody material generated, the number of jobs created, use and value of any forest products generated, any photos before and after, and then a spatial or a map data for the treated areas. And that's for the fuels and forest health reports. For the capacity building report, they need to show the number of community or partner engagements, the type of audience and number of attendees, number of projects developed and or prescriptions written, number of jobs created, any photos of events or equipment, and then more map for the planning areas. Next, please. And then the new one that came out last year, the Community Wildfire Defense Grant, or CWDG, was established by the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law of 2021, or also known as the IIJA. And this was to assist at-risk communities with planning for and mitigating the risk of wildfire. 2 projects that are eligible are Community Wildfire Protection Plan Development or Update. And for that to happen, the plan must be 5 years or older. And for a CWPP project implementation, the plan must be less than 10 years old. Eligible groups include local governments, the Native American tribes, also known, and the trust lands. This is the only federal land that's allowed to implement these projects. Nonprofit organizations, state forestry agencies, or Alaska Native corporations. The requirements include incorporating state forest action plans in the 3 goals of the National Cohesive Strategy. They must live within an underserved area and live in an area of high to very high wildfire risk. Next. And then to match for creating or updating a CWPP is 10%. And then for implementing a project is 25%. And one thing that these communities can do is they can request a waiver to not meet the match. And then available funds for creating or updating a CWPP is up to $250,000. And the funds for implementing a project is up to $10 million. And these are competitive annual grants. They are out until the federal fiscal year of 2026. The Colorado State Forest Service will administer these grants starting this cycle in July. So the CWDG funded projects will be required to provide financial reports on a quarterly basis, and then project performance reports must be annual, and these shall include a spatial data component as well. Next, please. So for tips to apply for a grant, make sure you read through the application and any other material thoroughly. There's a lot of folks that don't read through these, and then they end up asking a lot of questions either of us, or things come in incomplete. So make sure to answer all questions completely. Be concise yet detailed with the description. Consult with the local Colorado State Forest Service field office, and we have 17 of those throughout the state that cover multiple counties. So there's folks who are available to answer questions, to help figure out what projects may need to be done. And then these folks can also write your prescription, backed by science, and they can be a Colorado State Forest Service employee or an external forester, and that person has to be a certified forester. To follow the Colorado Forestry Best Management Practices Manual, if applicable, and to consider the Colorado State Forest Action Plan goals in your application. So these tips can hopefully help folks fill out their application, be funded, and continue with any project that they were hoping to work on. Next, please. And then any questions or comments, again, will come after these sessions. You can reach out and find the information on these grants on our Colorado State Forest Service website. And you can email me about any other questions that you may have. And if I can't answer them, there are plenty of folks in our agency who operate and manage these grants, and they can answer any questions you may have as well. So thank you for listening to that rapid overview of our 3 programs that we administer and will continue to manage over the years. And that's all I have.
Thank you to Robin and Todd for that great information. We'll now shift to any questions that participants have. So please put that in the chat or the Q&A box. And there have been a few questions come in about, getting information and links to these different resources. And just a reminder that following this webinar, we send out and link the recording, the PowerPoints with the links and the notes. So you will have access to this information. But to Robin and Todd, if you have any links that you'd like to put in the chat now, please feel free to do that as well. So I am not seeing any other questions. Earlier on, there was a question in our DOLA update, actually, that I'll just share with everyone because that they might be interested in this. And that was a question about the nonprofit initiative grant and just the definition of a small nonprofit. So that's with a nonprofit with an annual budget between 150,000 and 2 million that can show they have been the community has been impacted or disproportionately impacted by COVID-19 for that DOLA grant funding source. So there's some additional, so Robin, thank you and Todd for putting in some additional links so people can access those right away. All right, feel free to formulate your questions and get those in the chat. I don't see any more right now, but while you're thinking, I will turn it over to Jemmy Barrera from the Colorado Resiliency Office for an engagement survey, and then come back to see if there's any questions before we wrap up.
Great, thank you, Anne. Just quickly jumping in before Jemmy shares the link here. So one thing that we wanted to take some time to do today is to acknowledge that there might be an opportunity for this call going forward. So the local government coordination call was started originally with the COVID-19 emergency as a way for the state to be able to provide frequent updates to you all on what was going on with the response. And then that shifted as we moved into recovery, and now with a lot of the funding opportunities coming down from the federal and state levels. However, we also recognize that this is a great space where folks can regularly attend once a month to have a connection to us at the state level and to get some updates on what's going on. So we will very much continue to do funding updates through the end of the year, but also wanted to hear from you all on other opportunities that we might be able to engage in within this space. So we have a quick survey for you all today to start that conversation. So Jemmy will give that to you all in just a second. But yeah, we're just super curious what you all think could be beneficial moving forward, and we really look forward to your response. And the survey is only a couple questions long. So Jemmy, I will go ahead and turn it over to you to take that away.
Yeah, I have shared the link with everyone. So if you want to take a minute to open that up and just look through it, I'll give you some time to do that. Also, please let me know if you have any issues with it.
And Jemmy, are you gonna be sharing results or doing that later?
That will probably come later.
Right, okay, okay,
Mhm.
good. So yes, please, we value your feedback so that we can meet your needs and get you the information when you need it. And that will help us shape these meetings in the future or pivot if necessary. So again, I am not looking back on the chat. I've got a specific question that I'm going to send to our program manager to get back to a question specifically that I'm not able to answer about the nonprofit program. And want to thank again our presenters and all of you, and wish you a fun summer, and please stay cool, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.